think we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bit of Banter. I'm your host, Dylan Ford. Today, I'm joined by Michael Battisti, who's not there right now, and Gavin Laskowski.
What's volume? It's so loud.
On level, I think.
Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties right now. But today we are going to be talking about football as a whole. We'll be starting by covering the NFL draft that just happened about 2 weeks ago. Then we're going to be going into the recent jersey retirements that have been happening. And lastly, we'll end it off on on our Dynasty League that we've recently started up, and we'll be talking about how that's been going. So, yeah. You guys want to introduce yourselves a little bit? Gavin?
Hi, I'm Gavin. That's about it, really. Go Giants. I don't know.
My name's Mike. I'm also a Giants fan and #1 Malik Neighbors fan. And yeah.
Debatable.
Debatable. All right. So, I guess let's just get started. Talking about the NFL rookie draft that happened just a couple of weeks ago, what was your guys' whole thoughts on this draft as a total?
I think overall, compared to last year, I felt kind of weaker, but maybe that's just because the quarterback wasn't as strong as last year, because that's always the position that gets hyped up the most, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's kind of felt underwhelming, but I mean there was still a lot of defensive tackles, offensive tackles. The really boring positions is where all the good players were. So I feel like it felt underwhelming more than it actually was.
You talk about underwhelming positions, but what about the running back class this year? Was extremely deep and very potent, especially you could be drafting some guys in the 5th, 6th round that are still could be starters and solid players in the NFL. Do you think that was kind of the main class most people were looking at for this draft class?
I wouldn't say the main, but it's probably up there. I don't know if it was the top strength, but like you said, it was a strength in there. And you got to look at teams like the Giants that didn't necessarily need to take a running back, but you get a Cam Scatterboo in the 4th, and then got guys like Quinshawn Judkins and Dylan Sampson both going to the Browns. So, I mean, if it's a need, you're very happy about it. You didn't have to go round 1 like a Genty or a Hampton. You could still get a guy who could be up to their caliber later in the round. You don't have to spend as much on them.
Mm-hmm. So I guess let's just start from the first pick of the first round. The Tennessee Titans were first up to select, and I think we all kind of knew that this was coming. They selected Cam Ward. Do we think this is a good fit for their team?
Yeah, I think it was there was no other better pick. It's just like Gavin said, we're in a down year of it was a down class for QBs where I believe the top 3 prospects of Caleb Williams, Jane Daniels, and Drake May were all way better prospects than Cam Ward is.
Mm-hmm. So in general, even though this quarterback class was very weak, there was still at least one shining star with Cam Ward, obviously. And I know we'll be talking about it later, but there was another quarterback taken in the first round that there's very mixed feelings on. So once we get to that, we'll get to that. But moving on to the second pick, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars actually trading up for Travis Hunter. Do we think this was a good move on their part to move up and get their guy?
I do, yeah.
What are want to explain it more?
I mean, you had a need on both offense and defense and receiver and corner, and you get a guy who plays both positions. So, I mean, fill 2 needs with 1. Obviously, the debate is how much is he going to play on what side? Is he offensive first or defensive first? It seems like they're going to have him play offense mainly. But, I mean, come down in 3rd and longs, you got a lockdown corner right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's a great pick, especially for the new GM to come in and make such an aggressive move like that.
Mm-hmm.
If it works out, I think Jags fans will be extremely excited about that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Jags fans, we have a friend, obviously, who's a very big Jags fan, and my friend here, Mike, was with him when he got selected, right?
Yeah.
What was his reaction when it happened?
He was pretty ecstatic about it because it was just kind of unexpected. I just was very set on the Browns just taking such an elite prospect, but it's really the main question about it is the value that the Jaguars gave up worth getting that dude. And for me, I think of it like in a dynasty league standpoint where you'd rather give up some potential assets to make sure you get who you want, and that's exactly what that GM did. And we both loved the move when it happened.
Yeah, so Travis Hunter, a big-time player for the Jaguars. And the Browns only moved down like 3 spots, so it wasn't like a huge give up on the Browns. Plus, they got a first next year, so we'll really have to see if Hunter pans out and if that first next year ends up being anything. But moving on, this is your guys' bread and butter. Abdul Carter to the Giants. Who wants to start it off? You know.
Sure, I'll start it. I think it was. There's no like. I don't know if there was a better move. It was just perfect. I'd argue he's potentially the best player of the draft, if not the best defensive player. But we just got to see what happens with Travis Hunter. It was the most like predictable pick in the entire draft. I feel like from like any team could have guessed it, but I absolutely love it.
Do you think he has a really solid chance of winning Rookie of the Year, even with all these really good linemen and really good cornerbacks and safeties were drafted in the first round?
I do. I think he's set up for success with O-lines can only address so much, and they have to double Dexter Lawrence. They have to deal with Brian Burns. Thibodeau's going to be subbed in. So it's going to leave Carter a lot of one-on-one opportunities. So the quicker he adapts to the NFL environment, the more he's going to succeed and could probably win that Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Any other notes, Gavin? Are we good to move on?
I think he needs to pick his own number. I think asking Lawrence Taylor, who is arguably the greatest defensive player of all time, for his number is kind of crazy. Asking Phil Simms for his number is also kind of crazy, considering he's
Super Bowl
probably a top 5 Giant all time. And apparently Phil Simms said it was okay, but his family was not having any of that.
So this is something we'll kind of talk about later when we talk about the unretiring of jersey numbers. So we'll put a pin in that for now as we move on to the next pick. Will Campbell to the Patriots.
Another one of those, like, penciled in, the layup move. Like, it's right there. Don't overthink it. Your offensive line was terrible. You get the best tackle in the draft. You help Drake May for presumably his whole career.
Yeah, nothing really. It's a really good pick, but nothing like no one didn't expect for this to happen. You know, relatively obvious. So
did you hear his speech after he got drafted?
Dude, I was hyped for that.
Dude,
and I'm not even a Patriots fan.
Yeah.
What I didn't see it. What did he say?
When he got drafted, they did like the interview on stage, and the lady who interviewed him was like, "What does Drake May mean to you?" Or like, "What does it mean?" He goes, "I'm gonna die for this team." I'm like, "Hell yeah!"
That's a really good sign for a rookie coming into this franchise. But moving on, what was the Jags pick? Now the Browns pick, Mason Graham.
Like the cracker.
Yeah. Just another solid pick. Anything to think about that?
I'm a little indifferent because I think obviously like trading down and getting a guy of Mason Graham's caliber is good, but like I would have just taken Travis Hunter at 2 personally.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Like, to me, when there's that generational talent just sitting right there, you take them. But
in a year where next year we're supposed to have such a really good class that's supposed to be even better than the 2024 class, you know, getting a first-round pick there might be more valuable when it gets to that time. We'll obviously have to see. But
yeah, I guess, but
Travis.
What's the point of taking 2 quarterbacks later in the draft if you're just gonna presumably take a quarterback with one of your first-round picks next year? So because the QB room is already the weirdest thing of all time now, and then what's it gonna be a year from now?
I think they know what they're doing. They got 2 Super Bowl champions on that roster.
Yeah, Cleveland Browns and know what they're doing are not 2 things commonly said in the same sentence.
Yeah, obviously we'll have to see with the Cleveland Browns. Their franchise is run by GMs, I think, but
maybe
potentially we'll never really figure that out. But let's move on to another pick that I personally really liked. I know someone else here does not really like that pick, but Ashton Genty to the Raiders. I think this is honestly one of the best places for him to go. They got a really good line. You know, he's just going to get all the touches. They're just going to let him run through every defense they play, and maybe they can avoid Geno Smith throwing the ball and throwing interceptions. Me personally, I think this is a slam dunk pick.
I agree that it's a layup pick. It was like the obvious choice for them. They needed a running back. It's just I wanted him to go a little more some more exciting with other young prospects, and I just feel like it's only him on the Raiders right now.
I mean, you got Bowers, you got Jack Beck, who or Bach, I think it is.
Besh, I think.
Is it Besh?
I've heard Besh.
I don't know how to pronounce his last name. You got Josh there, and he's a really solid young player who apparently they're going to be giving a big role to. So
I kind of wanted to go to the Bears. I just thought the Bears would just be such an insane and fun combo, but Raiders will still work out great for him.
I think everyone would have been happy with Raiders or the Bears. I knew he wasn't making it past the Raiders, but just a solid, another good pick. I think that obviously you can't have Raheem Mostert and Zasir McCormick run your backfield, so I think they needed this badly.
Shout out Zamir White.
If he gets injured, they're kind of cooked on running backs, so let's just hope he has a good rookie season. Moving on to the Jets, taking Armand Membu. Any notes on this?
Another one of those absolute layups.
Just it's second year in a row they used their first round pick on a lineman, so hopefully it starts working out sooner or later.
I guess then we can move on to number 8 pick with the Panthers, Tedero McMillan. This is honestly a little bit of a surprise to me. I didn't expect them to take receiver here, but I don't honestly hate the pick.
Yeah, it's the same for me. I had them taking Jalen Walker here at this pick, but I mean, you get the big X receiver out of McMillan, who you could argue is the best true receiver, not counting Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
In the draft. So,
I mean, you talk about how Bryce Young specifically asked for this guy, telling them that they need to draft this guy because he's that good. I mean, that's got to mean something. Granted, it's Bryce Young, and he's had his ups and downs, but, like, maybe this will be the way Bryce Young becomes a good, solid quarterback. But either way, we'll just move on to the next pick. And my phone, put it away. The Saints, this is where I thought Shedeur was going to go, but obviously Shedeur just fell out of the first round into the fifth entirely. What are the thoughts on Kelvin Banks Jr. to the Saints?
Just like another easy problem that need to be addressed. They have a weak O-line. And
do we think that's what a lot of this draft was, of just small and good picks that are going to help their teams but aren't like the biggest, flashiest things?
Yeah, well, starting soon, you're just going to see, like, I felt like the later rounds was a lot of just addressing defensive line, and it's pretty much, I think, defines the first round.
Yeah, like I said earlier, a lot of the top players were defensive or offensive line, or not the flashy skill position players. So, like, obviously, like, it's boring to draft a tackle, but if you draft a tackle who turns out to be an all-pro for 10 years, like, you're not going to complain there.
Yeah.
Here, I really think they should have just taken Shedeur. Like, I know he probably fell for a reason, but, like, Derek Carr has an injury. I don't like Tyler Shuck at all. Had multiple season-ending injuries and is 26 years old.
He's ancient. Isn't he like 26 or?
Yeah, I
old?
just said that.
Oh.
I don't know. The Saints have just been in a weird limbo for what feels like.
I mean,
since Drew Brees.
They got
retired.
Spencer Rattler, so.
Yeah, it is true. They do got Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, but he didn't even look that good. And he's like a 5th-round pick, so they have no attachment to him.
But anyways, we move on from the Saints to someone who I do think is a flashy pick, Colston Loveland to the Bears. Now, reportedly, Ben Johnson was super excited to get this guy, was ecstatic that they got the guy they wanted. And as someone who kind of really put Sam Laporta into the spotlight and made him a top wide receiver, do you think that Loveland could be better than Sam Laporta with Ben Johnson coaching him?
I do.
You do?
I do think so. I think Loveland is more of a receiver than he is a true tight end compared to Tyler Warren, who I originally thought was going to be here. Some people had him as the best tight end in the class. But, I mean, Colston Loveland is right there, and I feel like we don't know what Cole Kmet's long-term plans are for this team. Like, are they going to trade him? Is he gone after next year? I don't know. I think he's got a year left on his contract, but I feel like this is probably where they wanted Genty, as you said before, and then Hampton was like a long shot. Like, maybe, but, like...
It could have happened, but you probably want to take who in his eyes was the best skill position player in the draft, maybe besides Hunter and Genty.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Ben Johnson did well with Laporta. I don't really see why he can't do the same with Colston Loveland.
All right, well, we'll move on to another kind of just solid pick. Michael Williams to the Niners. Absolutely, the Niners collapsed during this offseason. Lost so many of their solid players, and do you think this is just the first step in them recovering from this huge loss?
I mean, I guess personally here, I think this is a reach. I do not like this pick here. There have been several guys I would have taken over him that went significantly later. But, I mean, like you said, they lost so many pieces, especially on the defensive end. Just kind of got to slowly build back up.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll necessarily be as dominant like as we saw that Super Bowl run a couple years ago, but I also don't think they're going to be as bad as they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess only time will tell. And then we got the Purdy extension in the distance in the near future. Could see. I've heard upwards of $50 million for Purdy.
Oh my god.
That is a lot of money.
For Purdy. That's insane.
Think about that. A guy who's making, well, $800,000 is chump change for an NFL player. Like, compared to that, to like $50 million, like, that's
a big step up
like,
from
the last pick in the draft to $50 million.
I feel he's so, like, not trying to get off topic, but he's, like, no one views him as a top 10 or, like, he's really just, everyone thinks of him as, like, the borderline system QB.
Well, the thing is like, he's a guy that'll win you games. He's going to keep you in games, but, like, the Daniel Jones contract kind of screwed everything up because you're like, you look at a guy like Brock Purdy, and he'd be like, well, I'm definitely worth more than Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
And you can even look like at a guy like Trevor Lawrence or Tua, be like, I think I'm better than those guys. I think I deserve more than what they got. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how the quarterback market moves, and especially with the salary cap going up every year. You just guys make more and more money. Like Jamar Chase is making quarterback money.
Yeah. T. Higgins is even up there, and he's a wide receiver too.
That Bengals offense is going to be something to be worried about next year. But moving on to your guys' arch nemesis, the Cowboys, taking Tyler Booker. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, we have a friend who was a little disappointed with this pick. I think him and basically the Cowboys fandom really were looking for a wide receiver here.
Well,
and
there's a reason they didn't take a receiver.
Yeah. So at the time, everyone was disappointed, and we're just like, okay, again, it's not a flashy player for the America's team. It was just an O-line to help continue building that. And we saw today with them trading for George Pickens that problem was addressed. That kind of changes my opinion of this pick, and I feel like Dallas's strong suit is when they have a good O-line and they can get a run game going and be able to protect Dak Prescott so he can just launch the ball. So I like the pick now.
I mean, talking about run game.
Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders in that backfield.
Ooh,
we will be seated.
That might be the best backfield in the NFL.
Did they lose Rico Dollars?
Yeah, he's in Carolina now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So,
man.
I mean, they did get... They got, what, Joel Blue? Is that his name?
Jade Blue.
Blue?
Jaden, something like that.
They got a running back, so maybe he'll be good,
Yeah.
but...
But they still got Deuce Vaughn, too. All 5'6" of them, or something like that. I think this pick was a little bit of a reach, but it's a reach for need. And they got, 3 out of 5 guys on their line named Tyler now.
They're collecting them like the Infinity Stones at this point.
Once they get all 5, they might never lose a game.
So anyways, we'll move on to the Miami Dolphins taking Kenneth Grant. As a Dolphins fan, I think we needed a guard so that Tua doesn't die again, get concussed. But, I can't be mad at this. I feel like this was trying to fill the hole that Wilkins left when he left 2 years ago. I don't know. I just didn't think it was our first need, but I guess I can't be disappointed with who they drafted. I think a lot of people have talked to him about him being possibly one of the defensive rookies of the year, or not. Yeah, defensive rookies of the year, being one of those players who could just be the difference maker that the Dolphins needed.
And hopefully it starts panning out because you guys took Chop last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And adding Kenneth Grant, you're getting a pretty good
Jaden
young.
Phillips on the line, too.
You're getting a pretty good core going.
You still have Bradley Chubb?
I think we still have Bradley Chubb.
So, yeah, that's a pretty good core. It just needs to develop a little bit more, and it could be...
Jalen Phillips needs to stay healthy.
Yeah.
Another just solid pick overall, nothing too much to talk about. Moving on to Tyler Warren to the Colts.
This was a predictable
Another
one.
absolute layup of a pick.
Like anyone who didn't have Colson Loveland going to them had Tyler Warren going it to them. They were taking a tight end.
It
no
was
matter what.
it was one or the other.
Yeah.
There was no way a tight end was making it past them. What do we think this will? Do you think this will be good for like Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones?
I don't know. I think Anthony Richardson just might be cooked. If he doesn't put it together this
not.
year, like we might have to just give up on him.
I was so excited for him. He looked so fun, but
You know who else was excited for him
you.
and drafted him in a dynasty league?
Yeah.
This guy. So I'm really hoping Josh Allen's former like helper helps Anthony Richardson become Josh Allen, because if he doesn't,
Josh Allen's former helper.
one of the I don't think it was like a specialist coach that helps one-on-one.
Oh, okay.
The one that helped Josh Allen early in his career is helping Anthony Richardson now. So I really hope that
that's good news.
helps him, because if it doesn't, I
I
am screwed in dynasty. But
I think if he just gets the accuracy up, like he doesn't need to be like 70%. He just like more than 50%.
Yeah.
Like obviously, like he can do the deep ball well, but it's just like the short and intermediate. They just can't hit it. And I like it's not even like they have untalented receivers or anything. Like they have a nice young core. So
I like Downs a lot, and then they got
Pittman's a solid receiver too.
they
Like
got Alec Pierce, I think his name is.
and who did they take last year? That
Nye Mitchell.
Donnie Mitchell. Yeah, they Colts are sad.
Plus, you got Jonathan Taylor behind you. I mean, their offensive line lost.
Work.
They lost some pieces on the offensive line, but they also improved their defense. Like, I just wonder if who's their head coach? Is it Steichen or is that
I think it's Sykin.
Yeah, I think so. Because Gannon's the other one.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's a bad year. I think he possibly gets fired, or maybe the GM, or both. So
I just, for Anthony Richardson's sake, I hope this is what he needed, a good intermediate tight end that can block for him and can catch the ball. Hopefully Daniel Jones is not starting midway through the season, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that front. Moving on, Jalen Walker to the Atlanta Falcons. Another solid pick.
yeah, they desperately needed edge, and they haven't for like God knows how long. It's been like 10 years since they took one in the first round, and they got one who's not necessarily like a great like edge rusher, but he's one of the ones that grows on draft boards because he's an athletic freak. So obviously coming out of Georgia, usually if you draft guys out of Georgia or Alabama, they hit pretty well. Just look at the Eagles, for instance. So I mean they dress need and hopefully it works out, I guess.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll move on to the
Cardinals.
Arizona Cardinals. I forgot where they were from for a second. Arizona Cardinals taking Walter Nolan. Another just solid pick.
I would have taken him over Kenneth Grant personally. I thought it was a better defensive tackle prospect, but I think that it was a good pick for the Cardinals because they're really trying to beef up that defense that's been pretty bad for a couple of years now. And I guess it's just kind of hope the offense can click again with Kyler Murray post injury and see if he's really still their franchise guy.
Yeah. A little bit of a side note here. Did they draft any receivers in this draft?
I could not tell you. I could look.
Either way, I feel like I wonder if their defense was what needed the most help this offseason. Because obviously you got Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, and Kyler.
They did not take a receiver. They went almost all defense. He took a guard in the 6th.
Well, I'm just concerned that this is one of those teams I feel like did need help on both sides, but it wasn't more on the defense than on the offense, honestly. Like, I didn't watch many of their games. Was there
They definitely need more help on defense than offense.
All right, well, hopefully this helps put them over the edge. Obviously, they're kind of in a tough division. They got the Rams right now who are running it. Seahawks look solid. Niners were good 2 years ago. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see, Another just solid pick from the Cardinals, I guess. Moving on to the Bengals. Here, I thought they were going to take a wide receiver, I think they really needed that.
He might be cooking, honestly.
Ended up taking Shamar Stewart, edge rusher. What's your thoughts on this? Michael, why don't you give your thoughts on this?
I don't really know.
A lot of thoughts going on in that head.
I'm not like a crazy like deep NFL fan, so I honestly didn't know who he was before. but it was like the most obvious, probably the worst defense in the NFL, and anything helps, especially if he's going to fill the role of Hendrickson, which, is he still in question?
He's still on the team, but, like, he wants to be traded, right?
I think he wants an extension.
Yeah, he wants an extension. He just wants to get paid.
Which is
And
fair.
they were like, no, we're not paying you. We're going to pay T. Higgins instead and give him the biggest wide receiver 2 contract ever. So I like the pick.
Obviously, this defense just
So
needs to start getting
it's-
tackled.
It's a step. It's a nice step for improvement, but they're a mile away
If
from where they need
if
to be.
it pans out for them, I think it'll be very good because he's another one of those rose up the
Just-
board because he's an athletic freak.
Yeah.
He only had like 4 sacks in college.
Really?
Yeah, so obviously, if you're a team that values production, which it doesn't seem that the Bengals are, I wouldn't take him. There's other guys like, let's see, James Pierce, another guy that could have gone higher. A little bit of off-field issues, character concerns. Mike Green, another guy with character concerns. Or hell, they could have just taken Jahad Campbell. I think he's probably the best defensive player on the board. We'll get to him later. I got a lot of things to say about that pick.
All right, well, we'll move on to the next pick being the help me, Gavin. I
The
Forgot.
Seattle Seahawks.
Seattle Seahawks, yes. I
Lights
don't
are
know
too
why-
bright for this guy.
I am blanking on it once I'm under pressure. Gray Zabel, another just kind of solid pick. Anything we got talk about with him?
I mean, it's really what they need. Everyone's
Yeah,
concerned
their
with
weak point.
signing Sam Darnold is who's going to block for him, and they addressed it. They didn't have to trade up; just fell right to them. And obviously, like we mentioned, a lot of offensive linemen going in the first round, and you got arguably the best guard in the draft. So
Pretty solid pick overall. Moving on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I got that one. This one kind of made me upset. Emeka Ibuka.
It didn't make me upset. It was just weird. Like, weird as in not in bad. It wasn't the wrong pick. It was just unexpected because Mike Evans he's on his later half of his career, but he still has probably a few more in him. They just re-signed Chris Godwin. Jalen McMillan. He was kind of rising up last year, so I thought it was like there was other needs they needed before receiver, and getting him was kind of interesting to me. I mean, what do you guys have to add?
This was my thoughts on it. I really liked Jalen McMillan. I thought he
Me
was going
too.
to be that new receiver for them. I think this is Mike Evans' last year, probably.
Oh, really? He's still putting up thousands, though.
Yes, but like
he has to go till he doesn't, though.
that is true. He has to keep going until he doesn't put up 1,000 yards. So I don't think this is the year. He barely did it with Chris Godwin getting injured halfway through the season.
Well, he also missed time too.
Yeah, he missed like
He
4 or
did
5
miss time as
games.
well, yes. I think this is his last year. I think he's almost out of gas, and he's a great player, don't get me wrong. 11 straight seasons of 1,000+ yards, unheard of.
Crazy.
But
Who has more? I think
Wait.
it's like Jerry Rice.
Wait till they hear about Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
we'll see on that front. I hope so, but I really like Jalen McMillan, and this kind of felt like the new guy coming in thinking he wants his own guy. So I'm worried that Mbuka is going to be that number 2 receiver behind Chris Godwin coming forth, when I was really hoping it was going to be Jalen McMillan. Because I think McMillan has that talent to be that number 2 guy.
What round did they draft McMillan?
I do not know, honestly. I think it was 4th?
That would make sense. They didn't. I guess that's decent capital, but they don't feel like they invested that much in him.
But he was like a solid talent, especially at the end of the year. I don't know. I'm just upset for Jalen McMillan, but this
I was hyped for him.
This is probably just a good, like, pick the best guy available pick, probably.
Yeah, I think a lot of people say Egbuka was probably the best, the most pro-ready receiver out of the draft. But I think they should have just taken Jahad Campbell. He was right there. You'll need to replace Levante David at some point. He was right there.
Do you have something to say about Campbell?
No, we'll get there. We'll get there.
I think he's really good, and he should have gone
We'll
earlier
get
in the
there.
draft. That's what I think.
We'll talk about once we get there. But moving on to the Denver Broncos taking Jahdae Barron. I just looked down for a second. This was kind of a weird pick, in my opinion. I didn't expect them to take cornerback, but I don't hate the pick, honestly.
Who's their 2? Does anyone know their 2 or cornerback 2?
Didn't they just draft one last year?
Yeah, they have Patrick Surtain and they had Riley Moss,
Riley
who
Moss.
played pretty well. I don't recall what round he was in, but I don't think he was very high.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, they're just doubling down on defense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hear me out. This might be the best defense in the league going forward. Maybe competing with the Eagles because Eagles had a really nasty team. I know they lost a couple guys last year, but
Wait till he hears about the Giants.
we'll see, I guess. Okay, this is a kind of an off tangent.
Yeah.
Denver Broncos might be a top 5 team this year. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
That's not
I
ridiculous.
think
I got some teams I have hot takes
their
about.
offense, I think, will hold them back. Their defense is killer. It's always good. Like the Broncos and good defense is always a thing.
I think if
Except for the
if
Dolphins.
Bo Nix can at least stay where he was at last year, and then obviously they actually have what we hope will be a competent running back behind Bo Nix now. So hopefully they can get that going. And they also got Evan Ingram in the offseason too. So I think this should be another fun team, assuming that they don't take a step back.
I think-
Obviously Sean Payton as a coach is gonna help too.
I think Bo Nix is gonna take a sophomore slump this year and take it a little seat down. I feel like defenses will have him figured out a little bit more, have more film on him, in like the NFL setting, and I think he's gonna take like a Stroud dip kind of. That's my prediction.
I do think that is a very big possibility. It's a possibility with any of these second-year
Not
quarterbacks.
Jaden.
Well, I think
Not
it's-
Jaden.
I
Yeah,
think
but-
that the Broncos O-line is significantly better in Bo
Mhm.
Nix year 2 than it was for
Yeah.
Stroud in his year 2.
That's fair.
But another solid pick, and we'll just have to see how the Broncos pan out. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, so I was like, okay, Shadur fell past the Saints.
This has
surely,
got to be it, guys.
surely this is where Shadur goes, and then Derek Harmon, a defensive tackle, goes. This was another big shock, and it was like, oh, is Shadur Sanders gonna fall out of the first round? Like this was at the time crazy. Now that we know he ended up in the 5th, it doesn't seem as crazy that he wasn't taken in the first. But what are your guys' thoughts on defensive tackle to the Steelers?
It's just unexpected.
I
really.
think that I'm assuming they get Aaron Rodgers because
Mhm.
based on what I've seen, he was waiting for the draft at least to see what they did at quarterback. If they drafted Shadur at 21, he's probably less likely to go.
Mhm.
Now they drafted like Will Howard, like I don't know, really late.
Yeah.
So like probably gonna land Rodgers, and now with the George
Plus it
Pickens
fits.
trade, they're like, oh, Alan Lazard might be a trade candidate for them because Rodgers gotta have his guys. So that's what I'm assuming is like, yeah, we're gonna get Rodgers. Just when are we actually going to sign him? When is he gonna come out of darkness or something? I don't know.
Yeah. Just another, solid pick, kind of playing for the future with
Yeah,
Rodgers.
it's a Cam Hayward replacement because
Yeah.
he's up there in age. I think he's almost 40.
Is he? Damn.
I want to say he's almost 40.
But anyways, moving on.
Wait, Rodgers? He is he's the same
Well,
age as LeBron.
No, Cam Hayward.
Oh, my bad.
LeBron.
Let's not talk about
Yes, we
LeBron.
We all know Rodgers is unk.
Omari and Hampton to the Los Angeles Chargers. I think this was a solid pick, honestly.
He was getting I was curious where he was going to go because
I thought Denver would have taken him.
I was kind of on the same page because he was being talked up not like Gene T was that generational prospect, but Hampton was supposed to be not far off of Gene T and was being praised a lot. And I didn't expect the Chargers to go on him, but it's a great move on their part. And Justin Herbert giving him more, you can never go wrong with giving Justin Herbert more weapons.
Just another really solid pick, and I think that, like you said, this will really help them being able to just run the ball without having to have Herbert throw as many times as he did every game.
I wasn't expecting it with Najee, though. I felt like they were confident Najee was going to be their guy.
Yeah, it was a little weird that they took Najee, but it's a one-year deal.
Yeah, 1 year deal.
So it wasn't like a huge commitment.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Green Bay Packers taking Matthew Golden. Honestly, first time in 23 years, I think this is a good guy to get, honestly. Maybe there could have been better, but overall solid.
Do you want to switch me to Mike 3?
Yeah, what is
Just 'cause
Yeah,
it's geeking
so
out.
Michael, I'm going to have you start talking about Matthew Golden while I get
All right.
this.
My main question, I was just, would Green Bay have taken Mbuka, is that how you pronounce his name?
Egbuka.
Egbuka?
Yeah, Mbuka, if he was there? Because I don't think anyone was expecting Bucks to take him, and I feel like Green Bay had their intention set in the receiver.
Personally, I would have
Mm-hmm.
at that point. I don't really know if I love the fit for Golden, just because like
It's such a weird core.
because the receiver room is just a bunch of wide receiver twos,
Mm-hmm.
and like you got Christian Watson who's always injured, Romeo Dobbs is always concussed, and like both those guys' contracts are up at the end of the year.
Mhm.
So, I guess one of them, if not both of them, don't get re-signed,
Mhm.
assuming that's what this pick was.
Yeah.
I think they took a receiver in the second or third round too. So
Did they? Another? I didn't know
Yeah.
that. I hope Wicks breaks out this year. I feel like he's gonna step up.
I mean, with just how many receivers there are, I think he's going to get buried by how many people there are in that offense, which sucks because I do
Yeah.
agree. I think Wicks is a great talent, but
But for now, Golden is just smothered in other receivers taking his targets.
but I think he will be the number one there. I
In some
think.
time, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, maybe give him a little bit until halfway to the season before we start seeing it,
Yeah.
but I do believe in him. Moving on to the Minnesota Vikings taking Donovan Jackson, guard, just a kind of another solid pick.
Mhm.
They really needed to kind of boost up that O-line, so honestly, I don't know if there's too much to talk about
They've
here.
very much improved offensive line this year.
Mhm.
So we'll see if I hope J.J. McCarthy ends up being the answer, or if they're going to have to hopefully, or might have to draft another quarterback next year.
Mhm.
I think he'll be pretty good if he pans out.
I think
You don't want to see my Super Bowl pick though.
Sam Darnold being able to do what he did last year means that anyone in this offense can do that.
I don't know if they'll win 14 games again, but I think they will definitely be a playoff team
Mhm.
because like I don't think anyone expected, even like the most optimistic Vikings fan did not assume they were going to win 14 games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
mean-
excited for. Do you guys think JJ is gonna break out? and
Absolutely,
be
yes.
Like a stud, like Jane Daniels,
No, not
Bo
Jay
Nix levels.
Kind of like Brock Purdy, like
Brock Purdy.
Dak Prescott, like not the best quarterback in the league, but definitely win
But-
you games.
Yeah.
I think JJ is going to be. He'll show that he's
excited.
probably top 4 in the class that he was drafted in over Bo Nix, I think.
Yeah. I'm excited to see that Vikings team.
I like the Vikings, but I'm sad they took Van Ginkel from me last year. I'm still salty about that. But
I watched him get a
Good
pick six
last
on the
year.
Giants.
Yeah, that was evil.
anyways, this is where you guys come back in. Giants trade up from the second round to get their quarterback of the future, supposedly Jackson Dart. What are you guys' thoughts on this?
I like it. I have some questions about it, but that's not about him really. Well, there are questions about him, but I mainly think like everyone I've ever seen who's not a Giants fan just assumes that he's going to start at some point in the season. I don't know how true that's going to be because I know Russ and Jameis Winston are not great, but I think they're okay enough to win games.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously with the New York media and just how New York sports fans are, they might just want him immediately in there.
Yeah.
And I think he can improve under Brian Dable. But if we fire Brian Dable, I have my concerns if we don't hire the right guy.
Yeah.
Because obviously you saw what he did with Josh Allen in Buffalo.
Mhm.
So I think he can help Dart out in that way. But if he's not there, like it could look like a questionable move years down.
Yeah, I stated many times before this draft, my draft strategy for the Giants I wanted was Abdul Carter trade up for Shadur. But
Well, we thought it was Shadur.
yeah, so even when they like made this move, which I'll be honest, I wasn't as a Giants fan, like usually they kind of just go a safer route, and I was not expecting this aggressive move to come from Joe Shane, but I was very welcomed. And we all thought it was Shadur, which was kind of crazy when I saw the tweet. It was Jackson Dart, and that's who we got. But after seeing, I mean, clearly there's some stuff we don't know about Shadur Sanders. Like, he seemed like the obvious pick for all of us.
Well, I don't know if you saw, but he got into an
bad
argument with
with
Dable.
Dable,
I think
yeah.
what it was is like Dable gave him something, and the information on him was wrong, and Shadur was supposed to like catch, like, oh, this isn't right,
Yeah.
and Dable called him out for it, and Sanders didn't like that, so
Mhm.
that's where like the beef
Oh,
started.
Yeah. But I like Jackson Dart. I was talking to him a little bit up in the offseason. I like he's kind of like that dual threat, can rush, has a pretty decent arm, pretty accurate. He needs to slide. I see he just takes hits head on.
Yeah, he needs to work on his clutchness, we'll
Yeah.
say.
But he has really like really gonna be a gamble on himself because he has everything I think he needs to succeed. And a coach in Brian Dable, who is supposed to be this quarterback whisperer, and having two like established veterans to basically pass their knowledge on, and Russell Wilson, God. Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. But I'm excited to see how it pans out. And guess we'll have to see. You have any thoughts, Dylan? Sorry.
So I do have some thoughts. I don't hate Jackson Dart. I'm not gonna say I hate Jackson Dart. I'm just worried that this is gonna be Daniel Jones 2.0, where you guys draft a guy and you just kind of stick with him even if he doesn't pan out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm more worried about for you guys, rather than him being Daniel Jones. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried that you guys stick with him if he is Daniel Jones.
What if we have a
if we stick with him, I don't know if we do, because if he doesn't pan out and Joe Shane and Brian Dable are gone, new regime may like, we don't care about you, we didn't draft you, so you're out of here too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the whole thing. But I mean, if we don't draft a quarterback, like we don't trade up, and we take like Shador in the second round, I wonder what like the narrative is, or we just take Dart in the second round. Like, is it the same thing? Because like we didn't give up that much.
Yeah.
We didn't give up a first to get him. So I think we gave up
thirds.
We gave
a second
and a third this year, and a third next year. I want to
Yeah.
say to move up. So I was okay with the compensation, but I guess we'll see.
All right, I guess we'll move on to the Falcons.
Sleeper Giants, though. They're going to be good next year.
Dude, our schedule's so
I
bad.
know. We have the worst rated schedule.
Like, how does that even happen?
We got the Chiefs, the Ravens, and
We'll see how it pans out for the Giants. But moving on to the Falcons, who moved back up into the. Did they move back up? This was a trade. Yeah.
yes, they moved.
They traded a lot to move up. They traded a first with the Rams to get back in here.
Really?
Yeah.
I missed this pick completely. I guess
So
I
did
was
I.
just geeking about Jackson Dart. So
Yeah. I don't know what the full package was, but I know for a fact they traded next year's first to move up.
Mm-hmm. Well, either way, they took James Pierce Jr., edge rusher. I think yet again they needed edge rusher, so this wasn't a bad pick, but
They didn't have all of our jaws on the floor like they did the year before with the Penix pick.
if only. I think they should have taken Shadur here. I think it would have made the most sense for their team, but obviously did not pan that way. But we'll continue on to the Ravens, who last year their problem wasn't offense like it usually was. It was defense, actually. Well, not problem, but you know what I mean. It was weaker on defense. How did we like the pick of Malachi Starks here, safety?
Home run.
Yeah,
every year, the Ravens just get these stud players, like blue chip players, to follow them just because they play like an undervalued position. Like a couple years ago with Kyle Hamilton and Tyler Linderbaum.
And they're great.
And they're always good. And
Yeah.
they also got a good edge rusher in the second round who fell because he has allegations or something. I'm not sure.
Isn't another reason, like, wasn't Malachi Starks going to go higher, but he has, like, injury history, and that's kind of why he dropped back? Or is that, I'm confusing with someone else.
I'm not sure on that one.
But I'm pretty sure there was, like, some reasons why he fell a little bit, because he was projected higher. At least I remember in the offseason him being talked about a little bit higher than at the background, or at the end of the first. But I love the pick. Ravens have been great with their defensive picks over the years.
Yeah, don't think there's too much to talk about besides that was a good pick. Moving on to the Detroit Lions taking Tyleik Williams. I think that's how it's pronounced. Obviously, last year, their entire defense crumbled. They had, like, what? How many injuries did they have last year? 20-ish?
I don't know the exact number. I know it was
crazy.
a lot.
Yeah.
They were extremely injured at defense. So, surprise, surprise, they actually take defense here. Any thoughts on this, or just thinking getting more people so if this does happen again, it's not as bad?
I think it's exactly that. It's not the guy I would have taken to that position. I don't know much about Tyleik Williams. I would have taken Mike Green, who went to the Ravens in the second round. But, I mean, a lot of the time it's not necessarily like, oh, you pass in the best player. Maybe the best player doesn't fit your scheme.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's what it was, more of a scheme fit.
Mm-hmm. But moving on to the Washington Commanders, taking Josh Connerly Jr., offensive tackle. Any thoughts on this?
Given help, Jaden Daniels.
Giants have the best roster they've had in like 10 years, and the rest of the division decided they wanted to be competent.
Dallas, Eagles just won a Super Bowl and are going to be unstoppable with that offense and defense. We have a rising star in Jaden Daniels, and just basically Washington Redskins that is building to win
They built
now.
further around him.
And then we have a Dallas Cowboys who, no matter where they are, they're always going to be lingering as like a decent team.
Jerry decided that he wanted to be a good GM.
And now they got a really good offensive core or wide receiver core.
So you're kind of upset that the Commanders have taken someone good here?
Yeah. Well, I'm more upset of what's coming, but yeah.
We'll obviously see they're in the toughest division, considered one of the toughest divisions this year.
The toughest. And
because you have to include you
beast.
guys, though. Like, I would say the Browns and you guys probably have a better team right now, but the Browns still have that really solid defense. So I think it's in between the AFC North and the NFC East, really, for who's the best division overall.
Not North, East.
But moving on to Maxwell Hairston.
Are we really considering the Steelers that good of a team still?
Yeah, no, they're
not a great team.
They don't have a
QB
right now, and they just gave away one of their young wide receiver stars.
They're always above 500, though. That's just their thing. They'll always be a good playoff team.
They're not like the East right now. The East is
a good playoff team would make it out of the first round.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe I'm wrong on that, but we'll talk about that at some future date. But talking about Maxwell Hairston to the Bills, cornerback. You think this was a really good pick for them?
Yes.
I would have taken a different guy. I think he's a little undersized, but he's speedy. So it's probably another one of those scheme fit kind of things. I don't know if you guys saw, but the GM for the Bills, Brandon Beane, went on a radio show, and everyone's like, we should have taken a receiver. And he like crashed out on the people on the radio. I was like, all you guys do is bitch about what we do. We took a receiver, and we still put up a shit ton of points last year. And I was like, damn, he cooked.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, really, other than, I guess if you consider receiver needed, corner was probably the next best need.
Elam did not work out at all. Do they still have Douglas?
No, I think he's just signed somewhere else. Someone had interest in him.
They had to address that cornerback situation.
Overall, really solid pick. Obviously, kind of just what the Bills needed. But let's move on to someone apparently you guys are very passionate about, especially Gavin. Jahad Campbell to the Eagles.
Well, I don't remember who was there, but on draft night they traded up, and I go, I swear to God, if we let the Eagles get Jahad Campbell, I'm going to be so upset. And lo and behold, what happens? Because they just win the draft every year. Like, Howie Roseman is just so good at his job. Obviously, they're the Georgia team. Yeah. So, obviously, he's not a Georgia guy, but, he's just so good. He can play off the ball. He can play on ball. He literally can do it all. And they literally had Zach Bond, who was, I don't want to say a nobody, but not very good. He just turned into an all-pro player. The league just wants to see them win another Super Bowl.
Yeah, I get most of my information about the draft from you guys, and you were really talking up this dude weeks before the draft, and like you said, you predicted that he'd go kind of to the Eagles, but it's just insane how they can steal these players. They got Jalen Carter when they shouldn't have gotten Jalen Carter. They got Cooper DeJean when they probably shouldn't have got Cooper DeJean, and now they're gonna get this dude who I think is gonna just succeed.
So obviously you guys are very upset because they're your rivals.
I'm telling you, the one time the Giants are going to be decent in 10 years and the whole rest of the division is we cannot let that slide. They're too scared of us.
But let's move on to the final pick of the draft. The Kansas City Chiefs select Josh Simmons, offensive tackle. Think this is a good pick for them?
Yeah. I do. He was at the beginning of the college football season, he was probably the best tackle in college football, and then he had some, I don't know if it was a knee injury or something, but he was out for the year. So assuming he can play well while healthy, I think they got the best tackle in the draft.
Wow. Damn, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
But I guess we'll end it here. We'll talk real quick before we move on. Who do you think won this draft? We'll start with you, Mike. Who do you think won this NFL draft this year?
So, kind of biased, but also not biased. I think Giants had a great draft and really addressed their needs and should be a competent football team next year. But, without them being my team, I like some of the stuff the Jaguars did. Of course, the probably like Ravens, Eagles, and Jaguars are like
Mhm.
my three of good drafts.
What about you, Gavin? Who do you think won this draft?
If I'm not going to say the Giants, I'm going to say the Patriots. I think
Patriots, that's
they
a good
did a
one
very
too,
good
yeah.
job in this draft and overall in free agency to help build around Drake May. And I think they are set up for success, assuming that some of their weapons, like the younger ones, like a Jalen Polk or
Mm-hmm.
the other one, they got Kayshawn Boutte, and they drafted Kyle Williams,
Mhm.
along with Travion Henderson, too. So
Mhm.
I think that Drake May is a very happy man right now.
Yeah, you kind of took my answer. I was going to say Patriots, but I'll go with Denver Broncos just because I think
Okay.
overall they have just kept improving, especially in this offseason. They got a lot of good signings, and I'm telling you, top 5 team this year, and they might be the ones to take down the Chiefs in the AFC
No way.
Championship. They are one of the only teams I have faith that could beat the Chiefs
Really?
in the playoffs because
You don't
they
think-
play them twice a year already. They know
Yeah.
them almost better than any other team.
Will Bills ever do it?
I don't know, man. Josh Allen can only do so much.
Yeah.
But let's move on. That was our thoughts on the NFL draft. But something Michael wanted to talk about here was the unretirement of jersey numbers. So, Michael, do you want to kind of start giving us some context into this?
Sure. Just let me look because my laptop died and that's where I had everything. So it really started off last year with the Giants dog Malik Neighbors, and unretiring a jersey was never a thing. It was just unheard of, and it was a retired jersey is supposed to be not touched. They're supposed to be like remembered because of their success. Until Malik Neighbors last year, he was 8 in college, and we had some evil person using 8 at the time, and so he had to choose a different number, and he somehow managed to get number 1, which has been retired on the Giants for a long time, and it was, let me find his name.
I think it was Jack Flaherty or something
Yeah.
like that. Been retired since like 1929.
So yeah, he was like one of the first receivers of like in football in general, and that's why it was retired, which was the reason why people were like, "Oh, I don't really care. It's not like a big name. It's whatever. It's awesome Malik gets to wear it." But it was a new thing. Then this year it gets a little more interesting where Cam Ward gets I gotta look up his name. Warren Moon. So Cam Ward gets 1 from Warren Moon. And that one kind of just happened quick. Like
It wasn't like Cam Ward asked. Warren Moon just gave it to
yeah,
him.
like the Malik Neighbors one was kind of drawn out, and it was like a big, and it's New York media, so I feel like it was really popularized. But the Warren Moon one kind of just happened, and I feel like it kind of just got swept by really quick, and I feel like that's crazy for like such a basically important player in NFL history just to he willingly give up his jersey for someone who has never even played a down in the NFL and who could just be a bust, and you don't even know. Like, I hope he's not because Cam Ward should be fun, but he could just be a bust for all we know. And then I'll let you talk a little bit in a second about this one. Our new guy, Abdul Carter, has been talking a little crazy. Do you want to go into that?
Well, he starts off by asking Lawrence Taylor, arguably the greatest defensive player of all time, for his number. And rightfully so, Lawrence Taylor said no. Why would I give you that number?
Yeah.
And then he goes to Phil Simms, who is a top 5 Giant of all time, arguably. And Phil Simms said yes, but his family was not interested in giving him the number. And it's like, okay, I get you. 56, like, whatever. Like, that was just a weird one, whatever.
Mhm.
He wore 11 in college, so I'll give him that. But,
Yeah.
like, just pick your own number. Like, start your own
Yeah.
legacy.
I'm on the same page. Like, I feel like he shouldn't. You're always going to be in the light. I just think I'm retiring your jersey's dumb because you're always going to be. You're going to be held to so more expectations and just like for no reward, basically. Like you would just have to live up to it or it's a failure. Whereas you choose your own number and you build your own legacy and you're not held to like a standard of a
It'd be
number.
different if like he's been in the league for a couple of years and he's been productive, and then
Wanted to switch.
he's like, okay, maybe like I can get an 11 or
These
something.
rookies off the draft getting these numbers is just crazy. Like even my dad I loved the Malik Neighbors number 1 because I was just like that's such a sleek number and I liked him the go-getting attitude of getting it. But like it was a why move. Like he hasn't even played down that in the NFL. Why does he deserve this number?
Do we think that Malik Neighbors? My mic's muted. Do we think that Malik Neighbors kind of set this precedent and that this is going to be something that's going to be happening to every team eventually? People just aren't retiring numbers.
Every
think so.
team, but he definitely started something because this was not a thing until Malik Neighbors.
So you guys seem a little upset about, like especially with the Abdul Carter one, trying to take some of the best Giant players of all time's numbers. You think this?
It's just kind of like I just met you, but I walk into your house and use your things, and you're like, wait a minute, you didn't do anything for me. Like, you just walked into my house, and now you're using all my stuff. Like, that's kind of what it is to me.
And I just have a little mentality that's kind of scares me. Like, oh, everyone was cool with giving up the number 1 because he played in the 20s, but like, imagine like years down the line, like 20 years from now, someone on the Giants is trying to unretire 10, and it's just like, it's to their generation, it might not mean as much, but like Eli is the New York Giant, and it's just crazy. Like, and I'm sure that's Phil Simms to some people, and Lawrence Taylor to some people, and it's just crazy asking for numbers like that.
So overall, just kind of, it's just a weird situation that we haven't had to really address until just now. So.
Wait, can I add one more thing?
I also have something else to add.
So, now that we're talking about crazy, I just want to talk about the Giants draft class really quick.
Where was this when we were talking about the draft?
Well, no, yeah, but it doesn't really have anything to do with, like, the draft. It's just about the Giants being... So, basically, we have our number 3 pick, who is going after, like, people's jerseys and stuff.
I see where that
Jackson Dart doesn't slide, and he just likes to run into people. Our defensive lineman, I forget his name, likes to like make people cry and like
makes them lose their will live in the game
or something like that. Cam Scadaboo apparently would run into telephone poles for fun as a kid, and that was like it was his thing. Our tight end we drafted in like the 5 or 6. He tattoos himself, so he's.
You guys have a very particular draft strategy.
So we got a bunch of interesting people. That's it. That's.
Just talking about how weird your team's draft strategy is.
Yeah, they're just all a little freaky, but
back to the jersey thing. It's not NFL related, but I just want to say the you know how like obviously like jersey retirement is all that, but the owner, I think he's the owner or like GM owner, whatever, of the Miami Heat retired Michael Jordan's number.
Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous.
And Michael Jordan never played for them ever. And that's why LeBron wore number 6 on the Heat, because, like, I don't even know, just a weird scenario. Not related, really, at all, but I just wanted to put it out there.
It's just a weird precedent that's starting to be set within the NFL, I guess, is unretiring numbers, But obviously with Malik Neighbors, it did work out because he did look like he is legitimately that good and kind of deserved it, but Abdul Carter and Cam Ward have some very high expectations if they are taking these kind of numbers.
Even like just Abdul Carter, I'm sorry, not trying to drag it, but just Abdul Carter like going out and chasing these numbers is going to put a precedent on him like to live up to, and just extra basically attention that he doesn't need and should just focus on.
So we're gonna. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get you off there, but
you're
we're wrapping that up. We're gonna now finish off for a little bit talking about our dynasty draft, and I think I got it pulled up. to that. That's all we had planned for today. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Dylan. This was Gavin, and this was Mike. And you guys can have a good